Expecting more of the same from the latest product, the Murcielago LP640. Here it is, and of course, it's very dramatic. It's also very large, and it turns a great many heads as you drive along. Plus, it makes a lot of noise. But if you actually look at it, it's not that outlandish. It was actually styled by a Belgian, same chap who did the Audi A2, and there are no big spoilers sprouting out of it. There are no rotating knives. There aren't even any machine guns. The vents only open when the engine gets really hot. The rest of the time, they're hidden away. There's a giant oil cooling aperture on one side of the car, but instead of fitting a fake on the other, they haven't bothered. There's no style for style's sake here. And look at the exhaust pipe. It's the same width as the Channel Tunnel, but there's only one, not 17 like you get in most hypercars. You even get a device that raises the nose for going over speed humps. This is all fine, but what's the point of a Lamborghini that doesn't have space thrusters sticking out of the side?
Of course, you still get scissor doors, and when you step inside you find the steering wheel isn't quite in front of where you're sitting. But there is room for your head, and you can see out. You can even see behind. Then, when you're driving along normally, it feels very civilised. I mean, obviously it's not a Honda Civic. You can't turn left, for example, because the indicator stalk will hit your knee. And it does 8 miles to the gallon, or 4. But that said, you don't have to raise your voice to have a conversation. It's got satellite navigation, and it's got air conditioning, which, unlike the air conditioning systems in Lambos of old, isn't like being coughed on by a mouse.
This is all very worrying. You see, it's 8 years since the Captain Sensibles at Audi took over Lamborghini. And now they seem to be taking away its soul.
The only reason we ever liked Lamborghinis is because they were silly. Taking that away is like taking away the sunshine from a summer holiday. You're left with nothing.
Except for one thing. Audi have replaced the lunacy with something else.
They've increased the size of the V12 from 6.2 to 6.5 litres, but what it delivers is simply staggering. And 640 brake horsepower. That's more than you get from a Porsche Carrera GT or a McLaren Mercedes SLR. It's more than you get from a Zonda.
The result is spectacular. This is not a light car, but my God, it's fast. Properly, savagely fast.
60 takes 3 and a bit seconds. The top speed is 200 and... Tell you what, let's find out. 160. The fastest anything's gone down here is about 190. That's 200, we're quicker than anything ever. Look at that, 207. 207 miles an hour. Now, of course, figures like this are sort of meaningless. They're hard to get your head round. So what I've done is organised a demonstration.
What we have here is a Golf GTI. And what we're going to do now is have a half-mile drag race to show the difference between a fast car and a Murcielago.
Okay, now this has Formula One style launch control. What you do is you hit the sport button, Murcielago, turn the traction control off, and then floor the throttle. When the revs hit 4,000, the clutch will bang in and we'll be off. There we go.
Now, you might imagine that this sort of power doesn't come cheap, and there is some evidence to support that if you look at the options list. That little bit of carbon fibre there on the centre console, £4,000. Carbon brakes, £7,780. If you want the brake calipers, these things, if you want those painting, that's £600. Transparent engine cover, you see that on the back? £4,000. Flappy paddle gearbox, £6,250. You'd need a flappy paddle head to spend that on one of those. But amazingly, the actual car only costs £190,000. That's about half what you'd pay for a normal hypercar. So, it's quite well priced, it's hugely powerful, and it's surprisingly elegant. But do not for 1 minute be tricked into thinking that the king of the hypercars has become a supercar. In the twisty stuff, it's still a card-carrying lunatic. You take one liberty with it, and trust me on this, you are